You're watching Leafs Morning Take with host Nick Alberga and former NHLer Jay Rosehill. The show starts now.
All right, what's good, everybody? It is Friday, November 8th, the Friday edition of Leafs Morning Take. Nick Alberga and Jay Rosehill, and it's sort of funny documenting social media on Thursday. I guess we're trying to cancel Wayne Gretzky these days, Rosie. What's going on?
Lots of things getting canceled. Well, they're going to try. I think that cancel culture is going away slowly but surely, which, politics aside, I don't mind that.
Yeah, I don't want to get political, but the gist of the story, there are folks on social media not happy with the way Wayne Gretzky and his family voted in the election the other day and want to abolish his records. So who's number one now? Gretzky no longer exists in the hockey world.
I know I heard someone say, well, if you want to do that to Gretzky, I got bad news for you about Ovechkin, which made me chuckle too. I don't get that, man. It's just a sign of being too polarized, like left or right, whatever side of the aisle. I really don't care. But I'd like to go back to where it wasn't, your whole identity and pure hatred for the other one. Like, we honestly don't have that much against each other. There's more in common than it would appear. And I don't know. I think it's social media and stuff like that really, really tips the scales to make you just vehemently hate someone who didn't vote the way you did. It's a bit crazy, but I'm hoping we're on the trajectory where we can kind of shed the extremism on both sides and just chill out a little bit and maybe be able to talk to each other with civil discourse.
Wow. I always laugh when I see you come over the top rope on social media because X has changed significantly, as you all know, in, say, the last 5 years alone. And you can see random threads. And I saw you go over the top rope on one of these threads about Wayne Gretzky. And I was just dying because the majority of the people in the replies agreed with you and you had crazy likes. And I just laugh every time I see that.
I know sometimes I'm like, fuck it, I'm tweeting something and try to keep it normal and civil and rational and logical, but that's not what Twitter is. I'm curious though. I've only been on it for 2 years. What was it like before? Like, what was different? I always thought it was just a cesspool of people's opinions that have no face to themselves and they're not scared to just go wild.
Initially, it was like a platform created to get news instantaneously. Like you would find out right away, which we still do, but now it's become an opinion-based platform, a vendetta-based platform. And the biggest difference for me that it drives me nuts about X these days is the fact that when you're scrolling, you'll see stuff that happened 3 days ago, and for some reason it's come across your screen. Like, why would I want a For You section as opposed to back in the day, you would only see the tweets of people that you followed. So
Well,
now you see, pardon me?
You can click followers or For You. There's stuff they think you would like, and then there's just stuff from
Yeah.
your followers, right?
Yeah, but the default is set to For You. So if you forget that, but
Oh, yeah.
back in the day, 10 years ago, it was just your followers. It makes
Yeah.
no sense to me. If I want to see what somebody tweets, I'll follow them.
But what about 6 years ago? It was a cesspool of people's opinions and avatar no-name people slinging mud like crazy. It's not like it's just changed in the last couple of years, has it?
No. And again, there's a lot more fighting and back and forth, and you'll see some random scraps. And the thing that gets me too is the whole verification process changed the last couple of years where you don't know what's in a real account, what's a fake account anymore. Man, you'll see some tweets and be like, oh, Matthews has been traded. Okay. It happens once a year, I think.
Yeah, I still suck at using it. Like you guys, when I work with you, you're like, oh, Connor Dewar played 1625 and he played in Adirondack and he got 3 over. And I'm just like, where did you get that information? I'm pulling up websites and digging through the American. I'm like, fuck, that takes forever. But you guys seem to have it bang, bang. I think you're on the Twitter machine. You know how to use it a little better than me.
We got Steven in the chat. Who cares about politics? We're here to talk about hockey. I was waiting. So we'll roll on. We really weren't talking about politics, to be fair. So you mentioned Hakanpää and Dewar. The conditioning stint continues. They asked Craig Berube about it yesterday. They're going to slow play this, but I think the plan is to have both these guys play Saturday and Sunday in Charlotte. And next up after this weekend for the Maple Leafs, they'll host Ottawa on Tuesday, into Washington on Wednesday. So those season debuts are coming quickly here.
Yeah, so you think has he announced they're going to be in at any point in time? I understand they're going to play for the Marlies. They played one, Connor Dewar, 1-1, 2 PIMs, looks good. Didn't see much on the stat line for Hakanpää, but he's the one that I kind of more interested in getting into a Leafs uniform. But I'm kind of jealous they're going to Charlotte right now. It's one of my favorite cities, man. It's so nice there. But I don't know. Like, there's a certain amount of games they can play in the American League that's capped on that conditioning stint, and then like, is it automatic that once that conditioning stint is over and they're back with the Leafs, they're going to play the next game? I mean, you would think so. It's going to be interesting to see how they roll these guys out.
No, I think they can only play 3 games, and they got to make a decision one way or another, whether it's putting Dewar on waivers, which I think is unlikely. I think they view him as a potential piece in their puzzle right now, and they have to make roster decisions. But the one thing I'm fascinated by, like, how do they play this Austin Matthews situation? Obviously, it would give them some flexibility if Matthews can't play in the next week, and maybe they kick the can down the road. I think there's a variety of different routes they can go, but without question, there's going to be some roster moves, whether it's a trade or two, whether it's somebody like a Holmberg or a Robertson going on waivers. That time is coming, not to mention Calle Yarncroke. I think there was a sighting of Calle Yarncroke at practice the other day, which I think is development. We haven't heard from the guy in like months, it seems.
Yeah, he's totally been on the back burner. Hey, a lot of Hawk and Paw and some Doer stuff, but Calle Yarncroke, he's going to come in and yeah, let's say, I mean, it's obviously it's Holmberg and it's Robertson, and they're probably trying to package up a deal with a trade, especially with Robertson. But just like any other year in the world with any other team, if you get guys that are coming in that you want to play, you put the guy on waivers. If there's no trade set up, maybe you risk him on waivers, or maybe you send him to your American League affiliate. End of story. Like, that's just what's going to happen here. And I just don't think that those guys' play has done anything to change that, right? There's times where they tell you make our decision difficult. Go out there and perform and force us to make a very difficult decision. But right now, if Dewar comes back and if Yarny comes back, it's not a difficult decision. You're going to make those moves to get those guys in the lineup. I think their upside is quite high compared to what you've seen already from those other two. Nothing against them, but they just haven't made it impossible to get taken out of the lineup.
Look, I was dead wrong on the Timothy Liljegren return. I didn't see that coming. In fact, I thought he was going to go on waivers. But the easy solution on the back end with Hakanpää coming in is putting Phil Myers on waivers. We saw him in one game. But this guy's an NHL journeyman. Knowing the history with the waiver wire, I'm sure somebody will take a sniff at one of these Leafs guys, if not both. Like, it just seems that every time a Leaf hits the waiver wire, they're claimed. I'm not going to lose sleep if Phil Myers is claimed. Let's just put it that way. But I think he's the easy solution, at least in the back end. You put him on waivers. If he gets through, he gets through. If he doesn't, then you just move on with life.
Yeah, it's just the way it is. And that's why waivers are there, so that, it gives a player an opportunity to go somewhere that wants his services as opposed to getting buried in the minors. And that's the risk you take when you keep a guy on your NHL roster and then you say, oh, we are not using you anymore. You risk losing him. And the back end is pretty simple, right? Connor Timmins has done enough to stay on the roster for sure. And Philip Myers, they're simply just not using him at all, really. So the writing's on the wall that that's going to happen. It's up front where I see a little bit more nuance of what are they going to do. And agree with you. You can be surprised with, the Liljegren deal. It was like, wow, I did not see that coming, to be honest with you. So you never know what's going to happen with these other guys. Maybe this massive deal that breaks through that has a bunch of stuff we never thought of comes through for a Nick Robertson, or else he just goes on waivers. And honestly, I think guys clear waivers easier than people think. But like you said, guys have been snatched up before, so we'll have to wait and see. But that's the direction it's headed for sure.
I almost forgot Matt Benning was a Maple Leaf too. Can't forget that name. They have like 9 defensemen. It feels like right now Benning and Myers don't play. They just practice. Like, what a life, especially for a guy like Benning who makes over $1 million per season. I know it's not ideal for a family man and all that, and a guy who's more of an elder statesman in this league, but he's another candidate, I think, to be on the move. I know it was speculated upon last weekend, just days after being acquired from San Jose. Potential that he's out there on the trade market. It makes sense. But up front, I think it gets a bit more murky. I think it's fair to say the bottom 6 has been inconsistent. I think there's room for growth for sure, Rosie, but Holmberg comes to mind and Nick Robertson comes to mind as 2 logical guys that could be on the outs. I don't know if you feel the same way. Everybody else is sort of pulling their weight. David Kampf is what he is at this point in time. I think it's hard to trade that contract right now. They love Ryan Reeves. I haven't been crazy about Revo's game the last little while. He's had his moments throughout this season. I think there are upgrades when it comes to actual hockey players, but I do feel the need to have a guy like Reeves in the lineup sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes. Yeah, Revo aside, I'd like to see him do more and be a little bit more effective, but they like having him in, and there's a reason they signed him. That's something that's just there. I don't think they're looking at touching the fourth line. I think it's more that third line
Yeah.
options. And when Matthews went out and they bumped guys up, all of a sudden that bottom six, I think I tweeted, I was like, I made it sound like it looked weak during the game. But before the puck dropped, I was like, yeesh, when you look at our roster, minus that one guy, when you bring, you move one body up to the top six. And all of a sudden, I really thought the bottom sixes needs attention quite significantly before the playoffs start, and whether they can make. I'm sure every single day Tree Living's trying to make something happen. He's been transparent about that with a couple of different guys. So I think there will be changes, but I just don't think with the secondary scoring and the support and the depth up front that this team, as many positives as there are shining right now at this point in the season, I think that needs to be addressed. And right now, as it sits, it's not good enough to make a run by any stretch in the playoffs. So I'm curious to see how that develops over the season.
A lot of time ahead. There's no doubt about that. I should mention as well, Zach Phillips, our guys in the chat right now. So hello to Zach, and make sure to tune into tonight's edition of the Leafs Nation After Dark with Zach Phillips. I wonder how Zach feels, somebody who is a frequent visitor of King Street West, a back-to-back Friday, Saturday night. You know he's going to be ripping after the game anyways, right?
Do you notice a palpable difference between having a home Leafs game and not down on King Street West? Is it pretty obvious?
I don't remember the last time. Well, they play once a year on Friday nights at home. I'm actually going to the game tonight against Detroit. Press box special once again. Thank you very much. But I would say weekends have a different feel. Like there's nothing like going out like on a Saturday night after a Leafs game. But it really depends, man. It's really quiet right now. I think people are just waiting for playoffs. So how's that feel?
It's expensive probably for all those youngsters to go out and pay $14 a drink is what I think slows things down, which is a bit of a dent in the old party tricks when you're at that age, and life is expensive downtown Toronto. I know that much.
Here's a little secret. I'm 35 years old. I just went to Europe this past summer, an old trick. We would buy like a bottle of vodka and
Mhm.
sneak it into the bar and then buy soda, buy Sprite, and had ourselves a night.
How are you in the corner with your buddy like, hide me while I pour this
Dude,
vodka?
my buddy had this down to a science in Europe this summer. We'd buy like a 2.6 or whatever, a Mickey of vodka, name your vodka, pour it into a water bottle, tuck it under the pants. We got caught once, funny enough, at a hostel bar. Out of all places, we went to big ass clubs. It was a hostel bar. This girl frisked us down and she's like, "What is this?" It was like a water bottle of vodka, but it's a genius play because I couldn't doubt my buddy. I mean, prices are insane even in Europe these days.
That reminds me of being in the truck going into the theater with my kids, teaching them how to suck their belly in and put the candy in their pants. That's if we go to the city. If we go to the local one in Olds, we always buy it right there locally and help support the Mayfair Cinema, which has been there forever. But if we go to the city and whatever I just say, go straight to hell with those prices. So I teach them how to put it down their pants and suck in their belly as they're walking through. And I'm like, I don't know if this is right or wrong, but we're doing it.
Patrick G. Mafia writes in bottle service. You got that right. A lot of you saying that booze is cheap in Europe. I don't know when the last time you've been to Europe, but like I was in a place like Dubrovnik. We went to a club. It was like 20 euros a drink for a
Oof.
mixed drink. So then we just got smart. The second day, bought some vodka outside and then brought a bottle in and bought like a Sprite for like $3. It was perfect.
Away you go. Away you go. Yeah. With that prices, man, the exchange rate, I'd be doing it too.
Exactly. I had fantastic nights. So a bit of a cheat code if you head to Europe anytime soon. So make sure to listen to Leafs Nation After Dark. Watch it as well with Zach Phillips coming up tonight following this game against Detroit. And again tomorrow as they host the rival Montreal Canadiens. By the way, I'll be a guest on TLN After Dark tomorrow night. So looking forward to that with Zach. Make sure to get those super chats in at the Leafs Nation 401. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that like button. Leafs Morning Take wherever you find your podcast. Make sure to leave us a 5-star review. And don't forget to visit theleafsnation.com. Prime Monday Night Hockey on Prime Video is here, the exclusive home for the NHL on Monday nights in Canada. Coming up on Remembrance Day, also Hall of Fame Day on Monday, the Calgary Flames will host the Los Angeles Kings just down the road from Rosie and Olds. You can watch Prime Monday Night Hockey on Prime Video at no added cost to your membership. Just check out the sports section when you're inside the app. If you currently don't have a Prime membership, you can sign up for a 30-day free trial. Additionally, students are able to sign up for a 6-month free trial at amazon.ca/Amazon Prime. Prime Monday Night Hockey. It's on Monday. It's on Prime. Just got word a couple minutes ago. No Austin Matthews officially for the Maple Leafs tonight. But the good news, they're 36-19-2 without Matthews.
Yeah, I want to see where this goes. I think he'll probably miss the weekend and then he'll be back. That's my guess if I had to bet on it. And we'll see if the trend continues, man. If they play good hockey in front, and I don't think there's a logical explanation on why they do well without him. And I saw Zach had a little headline the other day of time to move on from Matthews or something. I was like, oh, that's going to stir the pot. All right. But yeah, they do have a good record, and they do have a considerable amount of success when Austin Matthews is not in the lineup, and he's far and away considered their best players with what he's done on the production side of things. So it doesn't really make sense, but nonetheless, while he's out, it's a good problem to have that they somehow find ways to have success without their leader.
I think people are trying to actively troll me on Twitter at the Gold Muzzy, where you can do that, where there's been a bunch of people saying the Leafs should actively look at trading Austin Matthews. And I think they're Islanders fans. You know my rivalry by now with Islanders fans dating back to the time John Tavares left Long Island for greener pastures, went to the Toronto Maple Leafs. It's just an anomaly. Like, it's really bizarre. It makes no sense. We've asked so many people why the Maple Leafs do really, really well without Austin Matthews. But, leading into this game against Detroit, into the weekend against Detroit and Montreal, I just want to see complete efforts, man. It's a process. And obviously it's early on in this season, but just get the good habits going again.
Well, it's about getting the cancer out of the dressing room, and so far that's happened with the.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, it's building blocks. There's been some light shone here recently. That little skid they went through, that 3-gamer. You want to put that behind you and learn from it, and just doing the right things. It seems like I've seen more 60 minutes or damn close to 60-minute efforts this year than I think we've seen in a long time, and we're 14 games in. I think that's impressive. I think that's something to build on, and I think that is the Craig Berube effect. Is it always lights out, gunslinging type of hockey? No, it's not. You got to grind them down and push a couple periods and have that one where you expose their mistakes, and you got to win 3-2, 2-1 sometimes, and that's okay. I mean, I don't want to hear snooze fest or anything like that. They're playing big. They got big saves, goaltending. They're playing physical. There's all kinds of things happening out there. That power play even remotely gets going and builds off of that last game there. Then there will be some more fireworks. But I just am impressed so far by a more well-rounded effort throughout the 60 minutes, which, as you know, in the past, they have some big periods, and then they just completely change their stripes and don't even know what they're doing out there and give the game away. And then they're playing scrambly hockey in the third period where they almost get it or get it to overtime. And then, of course, that catches up with you. And I feel like that identity is starting to fade a little bit. At least I hope it is.
You don't want to hear snooze fest. 4 days ago via X, J_D_Rosehill, somebody do a score, ZZZ. So you were bored 4 days ago. Now, not anymore.
I can say I want someone to score. I'm not gonna knock their style of play for being boring. Sometimes I just want someone to do a point or make a goal.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair. But I understand what you're saying. Simplify the game. We've seen that to an extent with the power play, which we'll get to. So I'm going to list some names. You tell me how many of these people you've played against in your day in the NHL. Pavel Datsyuk, Jeremy Roenick, Shea Weber. So those would be the players. Did you play against any of those three guys, all three, or what?
Just not Roenick. What year did he retire? I didn't play against JR. I would have remembered that.
Isn't that crazy, though, man? Like, Pavel Datsyuk is going into the Hockey Hall of Fame on Monday.
It's pretty cool. And I mean, I always loved how he was like a 6th, 7th rounder or something. And like, how did he sneak through all of those rounds? Is he that late of a bloomer where he just absolutely turned it on? And it was a little bit of the era of, oh, he's too small. Like, so many people just write him off because he's too small, because the NHL was so big and rough and tumble and hook and clutch and grab and stuff. So I guess that's what happened. But when you watch his highlight package, I don't think anybody could dance and dangle and use his mitts the way that guy could. It was phenomenal, and it was fun to watch and play against. but Roenick retired the year before I got to the Maple Leafs, but played against Shea Weber. He actually came to my cabin in the summer one time and asked if he could take my sister out on a date in Sycamoose, where he's from.
What'd you say? Fuck no.
I wasn't there. I was at a prospect camp in Tampa, and small town Sycamoose, where Shea Weber's from. Shea Weber Drive is the road leading up to the arena, and by all accounts was a nice guy. But my dad and my brother were there and going, "Oh, you're that big sucker, that World Junior dude, and yeah, you go ahead, you have her home by 10 type of thing." But yeah, that didn't try to inspire into too much. But I kind of saw his name, like when you look at JR and how long it took for him to get into the Hall of Fame, and then Shea Weber just pop, there you go, bud, you're in. It seems a little soon, doesn't it?
Yeah, I don't know how it officially works. JR took a while though. I know that. Like he's not a first ballot Hall of Famer, and rightfully so. But the voting process is bizarre to me. There's like Alexander Mogilny is the classic one that comes up. Obviously played for the Maple Leafs, so maybe I'm a bit partial to that as well. But like I don't understand some guys who get in, some who don't. It's just an ongoing issue. I don't know if you want to call it an issue, but there's some really good players who aren't in the Hall of Fame yet. But I think this class made a lot of sense when it comes to Datsuk, when it comes to Weber. Also going in David Poyle, Coley Campbell, Natalie Darwitz, Chrissy Wendell. Roenick's the one. It's been a while. I think, as you mentioned, 0809 is the year he retired. So we're looking at like 15 years ago.
Yeah, that is a long time. And is this Webb's first opportunity? Is he a first
I
ballot?
believe so. Yeah, I believe so. Same with
Kinda
Datsuk.
like he played 1,000 games,
Yeah.
500 some points as a D man, had that clapper that was just outrageous. And he was such a man's man and a leader, and
Oh,
that
yeah.
defenseman you just build your team around. No question. But first ballot Hall of Fame, that's pretty impressive. He seems young. Like I guess he's my age, which is not crazy young. But when you look at the JRs of the world, and it takes a while to get into that hall when you haven't won a Stanley Cup and Conn Smythes and all that stuff. It's pretty impressive that he's going to go into the hall right now and have that accolade behind his name. So hats off to him, and to everyone else. That's pretty neat. And then Datsuk too. I mean, that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, I think the issue, quite frankly, with Weber is they're waiting for his contract to play out, right? If you recall, he was LTIR'd for the last 4 or 5 years of his contract, which is a sad way to go. It's very similar to Carey Price. Like, remember the Montreal Canadiens like 5, 6 years ago? They had Shea Weber and Carey Price. Think about that.
I know, and then it just went away. It's kind of rare to have an injury in this day and age be so detrimental that you just can't fix it. And I know the guys are getting old, but if it's just odd, man. And for that to happen to that caliber of players at the similar time frames for the same organization who thinks that they're going to be their ticket to the promised land. I mean, how
Yeah.
devastating is that for Habs fans? I can say that without question, and actually sympathize for anyone where that happens. And then you talk about the guys personally, very devastating. But hats off. I think that'll soften the blow, knowing that it didn't affect you getting into the Hall of Fame.
I couldn't even tell you where the Weber contract ended, man. It was traded like multiple times. I think it ended up in Arizona at some point, Vegas. I don't know. Like, isn't that crazy? Like, I mean, you think about the business aspect of the game. You think Nashville, you think Montreal for Shea Weber. That's not how it ended, and nobody's really going to remember that.
Yeah, but that's just paper transactions. The
Yeah,
guy's not doing anything different. It's,
true.
what was Phoenix trying to get to the cap floor, for crying out loud?
Probably.
What a
Yeah.
pathetic excuse that was. But yeah, a tough way to go, man. To have a career like those guys did specifically, and for it to just, you'd like to burn out the way Ray Bork did. Unfortunately,
Oh,
next
yeah.
to nobody gets to have it that way. But to just kind of fizzle out like that, and limp to the finish line is pretty sad. But that's the world of professional sports. That's something that does happen. It's just crazy it happened in that era with those two players for that organization is a tough balance.
I will report back on Monday with my findings, but I try to make it sometimes to these Hall of Fame games because everybody's going to be in attendance. It'll be really, really cool. They're going to get acknowledged prior to puck drop between Detroit and Toronto. The record last year against the Wings, by the way, 1-1-1. Game 2 of this 4-game homestand. The Maple Leafs 5-2-0 at Scotiabank Arena. It sounds like the flu bug is going through the Detroit room right now. Alex Lyon was confirmed, I believe, yesterday as the starter, but I saw Ville Husso was recalled from the AHL today. So we'll find out, I guess, in a couple minutes who's starting for Detroit. But plain and simple, the Leafs are a better team. They got to find a way to win this hockey game.
Yeah, they do. Wings are coming off 2 wins in a row,
Yeah.
feeling all right. But I like, I mean, I love Stolarz. I like the Leafs' home record right now. I like how they're not scrambling, trying to find anything. It's a matter of picking up where you left off tonight. And it starts with that power play. So we'll see what they put together and if they're able to continue the success that they had. Because as we talked about yesterday and take it or leave it, I don't think anyone is completely satisfied that the power play is healed and we have no more worries. I think they need a little bit more track record to prove that.
Well, I was going to ask you that. The power play goes 3 for 7 against Boston, and there's like massive celebration, I guess, in this city, and people are drawing conclusions that Matthew Nyes is the difference. But I think we can both agree, pound for pound, Matthew Nyes may be top 2, top 3 performer so far this season in terms of consistency. He's been outstanding, and it's funny, you and I have been preaching a change to PP1 for like a year now, and they make it, and it's Matthew Nyes, and he's really turned a corner in his career. Think this has staying power even when Matthews comes back?
Yeah, I do. I mean, has he not had one sniff on the first unit this whole year until the other night?
He had a couple when Matthews was in the line. I remember they
Yeah,
tinkered with the 2
I
mixed
remember them
units there.
tinkering. So
Yeah.
it's not crazy, but I like him. I like everything about him. I don't think anyone has benefited from the Berube change as much
Mhm.
as Matthew Nyes, and I don't think anyone has adjusted and adapted as well as Matthew Nyes has. He's got all the right stuff, man. Like he just everything that you want to see out of a player on your team. He's got it. Like he's got the confidence. He's got the swagger. He works his balls off. He out powers people to get those pucks, and he's got the finishing touch, right? Like for a guy that works like that, you'd think he'd be like me and just kind of has like hands of stone, and it's like, yeah, great, but like how much are you going to get off of him? He gobbles those pucks up and just rips them home. He makes no mistake. He's got tons of finish on him, which allows him to play with those big boys. So I think he's a no-brainer to keep on the power play. He was a pretty big piece of what made it get over that hump, at least initially, from having absolutely zero success to all of a sudden, oh, there's a glimmer of hope. Maybe the floods or the levees have broken and we can kind of, let this thing flourish now. Yet to be seen. But if that is the case, he's a big piece of it. So I don't see why you would take him off.
You're right. 7 for 47. This thing ain't working with the 5 guys. I'm very curious when Matthews comes back how they deploy their power play,
Mhm.
because at the end there we saw the 5 forward set, like they're just gasping at straws, trying for anything. But I think the one constant again in terms of consistency and maybe even production has been Matthew Nyes. I think he has earned this opportunity. I mean, you talk about guys earning their ice sometimes in this league. There's no question Matthew Nyes has been the guy who's been able to transfer his game and be the most relatable guy and most consistent guy under Craig Berube. I think you award him. You award players sometimes. That's how you get the most of them.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's a results based league. And when the guy's producing, you don't mess with that. I think it's kind of a no-brainer. The question is, who do you move when Austin Matthews comes back, and
John
where
Tavares.
do you go from there? It's unfortunate that you do have to do that, but I think it's a damn tough thing to take Matthew Nyes off. Who do you think they move out?
It's easy for me. It's John Tavares. Like I I couldn't believe this, by the way, when they were making all those changes. The stories that came out about people being butthurt. I don't care. You make 11.5 million bucks. If I'm gonna put you on my fourth line, I'm gonna put you on my fourth line. And a piece of me wonders why it was Nylander to be that guy to go to PP2, if you recall. It wasn't anybody else. You can draw comps to what I'm talking about.
Well, at the
I
top,
think
he's a top scorer in the league right now. That's a bold thing to do. He's tied for the league lead
exactly,
as of
but
last
but
night.
but all I could think about, Rosie, is like why do they choose Nylander of all players to make that move with a consummate pro like JT to PP2?
Yeah, yeah, for some reason I wasn't thinking JT. I was thinking Riley, OEL, Marner, Matthews, Nyes, but I think it was because you can with Willie. He's not gonna get in a tiff. he's not going to get butt hurt. And it's also, let's take this high-powered scoring dude who's playing hot right now, put him on the second unit, split the units up evenly, which you saw some discipline in the first unit hopping off at times, and seeing if he can get something go. Like, that's just throwing more mud at the wall and seeing if stuff could stick. I don't think, I mean, it is a demotion, but I don't think the way they would phrase it to him and say, hey, Willie, this is what we're doing just because we're trying everything. We know how hot you are right now. We want to put you on this unit, see if you can get something going with these other guys and let these guys, continue to spin their wheels and hopefully they find something. But you're going to be back there at any point in time. Matthews goes down, away you go. But I don't see it as a dig towards him. I just think they needed to do something, and it would be, I think Mitch wouldn't handle it well mentally, to be honest.
At the Leafs Nation 401, make sure you hit that subscribe button, that like button again, at the Leafs Nation 401. I agree with you. I do think it's a demotion. Somebody in the chat was talking about JT to the fourth line. What a ridiculous comment. That from Michael. I don't believe either me or Rosie said that. Maybe somebody in the chat said that. This is not a slight on John Tavares. I just think of PP1. I know. I was confused too. Of PP1, I think if you're keeping eyes in there, one of those guys has to go to PP2. I think it is a demotion for Willie Nylander. Like, if you do recall, the whole story about ice time came out around when the Maple Leafs made that decision to put him to PP2. Because if you're Willie Nylander, you want to play with the best players. And if you're on PP2, you're not with one of the best players on the planet in Austin Matthews. So I think he was pissed. I'd be pissed.
Yeah, I hear you. It's one of those things where you have the private conversation with your coach, maybe as you're just kind of skating around before practice or pregame skate starts, and it's like, hey, listen, I know what this looks like, but you got to look at it from our point of view. The reason we're doing this is XYZ. We know you're a player that can handle it. This is going to show your grit and your character, and this is going to show it's got to be a team first mentality. It's not meant to demote you. It's meant to get everyone else around you going, blah, blah, blah. You phrase it like that.
Yeah.
And the player needs to adopt that understanding and mentality and team first and say, listen, I get it. We're in a jam here with this PP. I'm going to continue to do what I can do to help. That's all you can really take of it. And lo and behold, it doesn't last. But looking at it from where it is right now, no, I agree. John Tavares goes to the second unit power play. You slide Austin Matthews back in and hope that the same type of things happen. Because ultimately, JT wasn't really involved in the success when they were playing Boston and they got those 3 goals. It was, I mean, a lot of it, the majority of it revolved around Matthew Knies. And you need a big body in front if you're going to play that simple hockey and funnel pucks to the net. You need a big body there for screens, for rebounds. What happened on Morgan Riley's goal? Matthew Knies is screening the goaltender. What happened on the third goal? Matthew Knies gets a rebound or a tip and puts one home. I mean, let's take him off of it because now our power play is solved. Get serious, man. He's got to stay.
I agree, and curious to see how that power play looks tonight. Maybe they get a bit of confidence after that 3-for-7 game against Boston. By the way, we were talking about Alex Lyon. Doesn't look like he's going to play, so maybe he does have the flu. It looks like Cam Talbot, 37 years of age. Is that a really good start this year in Detroit? 4-1-1, a 9.29, 2.45, 1 shutout with Husso expected to back up. So it looks like the Leafs are going to face a red-hot goalie here in Cam Talbot.
Yeah, surprise, surprise. I mean, they got all the more reason to keep it simple and to funnel pucks to the net and do the things that have got them kind of out of the funk that they've been in for a while. So be interesting to see how they attack it. Be interesting to see the combinations, lines, power play units, that type of thing. And you're not going to get 7 looks at it again this week. That was kind of this game, that was kind of a gift, I think, against an undisciplined Boston team where the ref had trouble putting his whistle away. But Stoli again, can he stay hot? That power play unit, there's lots of things to look at tonight, but their home record's pretty good. I'm just sitting here going, what are we going to see tonight? And I still don't know. I know they're on a bit of a, things are starting to roll, and I just hope that the consistency can start to become the norm, but this is a big test for it.
At the Leafs Nation 401, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. By the way, a bit of an update on Austin Matthews. Ruby saying we're going in the right direction, calling him possible for tomorrow night's game against the Montreal Canadiens. So I don't know. I wouldn't rush it though. I wouldn't push it, and obviously they're not going to push it. But I wouldn't have this sense of urgency to get Matthews back. It's a long season. I'm sure the guy wants to play, but I would just be very, very careful with this.
if you can't play tonight, what is tomorrow gonna
I
bring?
know.
Like,
I
what's
know.
different? You think that, "Oh, I'm healed now." There's not a chance in hell he's playing this weekend, and that's for the right reasons, like we talked about before. It's like if they couldn't even come close to competing in a game because he's that good, and things are just falling apart, okay, like a reason to maybe like we need him back in here. We need to, stop the bleeding. That's just not the case. They happen to have an unreal amount of success without him. He is your best player. You need him months down the road more than ever. Why would you not play him tonight and then play him tomorrow? There's not a chance in hell he's playing tomorrow.
Yeah, it's really weird. Like, I don't know if it's lip service. It's strange lip service if Berube comes out and said that he's possible. Like, why not just shut him down for the weekend?
He probably just came out of the training room. What's going on? Oh, he's really close. Like he kind of
Yeah.
wants to, but there's still this lingering thing. And the last 2, 3 days, he's made big strides forward. Oh, yeah, well, yeah, it's possible he'll play tomorrow. But at the end of the day, when push comes to shove, I think it's just like, well, what's the reason to shove him and push him for this Montreal game when he wasn't good 24 hours ago? I don't see it with a player of that caliber. I think it's a tiny bit reckless. And if you're gonna give him, if he needs one more day of healing tonight, then why not give him 3 or 4 or whenever the next Tuesday game is there? So I just don't see why he wouldn't be able to go today and he is tomorrow. I think that would be kind of silly unless he's like outrageously close to play today and they're like, one more day, let's just give you one more day. But I just
Yeah.
think that's splitting hairs, man. Give him the weekend off, make sure he's healed.
And so Anthony Stolars will start 5-2 and 2, 2.12, a 928 one shutout, which means Joseph Woll, the probable starter for the game against Montreal. That makes the most sense, especially a guy coming off a shutout. You give him game one.
For sure. Yeah, I'm kind of excited. I want to look forward or look ahead, but that Montreal game, they are absolutely spinning their wheels. I think they've lost 5 in a row. They're frustrated, but I do not want to be the team that lets them get their season back on track here against the Leafs. Obviously, everyone was pretty jazzed after the summer to have the opening night in Montreal. Couldn't score a bloody goal. Lost 1-0. Just not very good taste left in your mouth after that one for Leafs fans. And now Joseph Woll is probably going to play that game. I think it's a big opportunity for him to make a statement and say, I'm back. I'm back in the conversation, have a big performance and get a big win Saturday night redemption against the Montreal Canadiens. I think that'd be massive.
I can't believe that was like, what, a month ago. Samuel Montembeault comes out on opening night. And if you recall the conversation around opening night, Montembeault is going to be the number one for Four Nations. I don't think he's made a stop since that game. He made 48 saves, a 1-0 shutout win for the Leafs. If you do recall, it snapped a long streak for the Maple Leafs of scoring in regular season contests. And Montembeault gets that shutout. Would they show any tape from that game, like in the pre-scout?
It depends on the coach and what he wants to portray to the team. Does he want to overwhelm them with X's and O's, or is it more of a vibe feeling thing? We don't worry about them, we worry about us, and the rest takes care of itself. Depends what direction he wants to go.
Yeah.
I think for sure the power play and PK will look at some video and look at their tendencies just to kind of remind you of who they have out there and what they like to do and what their strategy is. As far as having the whole team together and showing some 5-on-5 stuff, maybe if he sees some specific things that related to what they've gotten away from and what they have rectified, and just remind you this is what it looks like, and then show some current clips. This is now what it looks like, and you guys have seen firsthand on why that's successful. Depends on the coach's strategy, but neither here nor there. He's not going to pull them all into thing and beat a dead horse and say, look how you guys shit the bed by any stretch. It's more of a positive thing. Keep the train moving tonight, I think.
Yeah, weirdly, the Montreal game concerns me more than the Detroit game because we talk about inferior opponents quite a bit on this podcast. And number two, the Habs always just seem to play the Leafs tough and vice versa. Like, it doesn't matter where these teams are at in the standings. We saw that on opening night. I know it was more so about Samuel Montembeault. I thought the Leafs were really good in that game, but you've got to be ready. I think it's always difficult in professional sports when you play a team that's fighting it because they're just gonna clench up. They're going to try their hardest and they're going to try to break out of this thing. And you talk about Montreal, another loss to New Jersey last night, 4-8-2 in the first couple, 14 games of this season. But yeah, they've been really struggling lately. And the Maple Leafs are going to be in the back-to-back here, albeit on home ice, though.
I know. I always hate like when a team's struggling and on a bit of a skid, you'd like to think, oh, opportunity to pick them apart and take advantage. But for some reason, when it comes to the Montreal Canadiens and the Leafs, far superior team, but I just worry that they're gonna come in and, rectify the slump that they're in against the Maple Leafs, and like you said, back-to-backs and maybe not enough time to prepare, but nonetheless, you can't look past one game at the other. You got a job to do tonight against Detroit, and, you gotta keep your head on straight and get your rest and hydrate and get your stuff going for back-to-backs at home, but, you know, Stoli tonight, I have confidence in. Got high hopes for Wool on Saturday if that's how it goes. And Retribution Saturday night, their record is really good at home. So there's no reason to believe that'll happen. And with no Austin Matthews in, I mean, obviously they're going to have success.
You would think, hypothetically at least, and we'll see if Matthews plays in this game against the Montreal Canadiens. It's Montreal, Toronto, so you got to talk about Jacky and Reeves. We didn't see it in the
Mm.
first game. We haven't seen Reeves fight at all this season, man. Like it's weird.
I know, and I hate saying, "Oh, there's 2 guys that can do that job." Well, they're going to fight tomorrow, and I hated that. I hated when people texted me before a game, "Are you gonna fight McGrattan tomorrow?" I'm like, "How do I know? The game hasn't even started, right?" And I never liked opening night face off. You wanna go? Okay, good luck, good luck. Square up the Larocque. Yeah, let's have that stage shit was gross. I like to fight when you needed to fight. And there have been opportunities in my mind where Ryan Reeves should have tried to get a scrap going. The Rempe, the Jack Eyes, opening night in Montreal, statement game, Craig Berube, your team is down, you're spinning your wheels, you can't seem to get a goal. Go right to Jack Eye and try to spark the boys. Try to embarrass Jack Eye. Try to get their crowd to go, "Oh, that was ugly." Try to get your boys fired up, something to be Jack. Go to the box, drop the puck up for grabs. Now this game, hopefully something changed and it triggered something, and that happens all the time. I think he could have done it against Rempe. I heard that Rempe was trying to go him and he just ignored him and wouldn't even look at him. So surprised at some of those things. And I'm not by any means saying he needs to fight Jack Eye on Saturday. But if the opportunity presents itself, say the Montreal Canadiens score first, and it's like this groaner, absolutely look for that guy and do your job. I am going to be looking to see how the game presents itself. And if it's not in the favor of the Leafs, I want to see what Ryan Reeves' response is.
Yeah, it's very interesting from that aspect. And the other thing to bring up is like the actual hockey player. Arbor Xhekaj is having a terrible year,
Yeah.
man. I watched quite a bit of the Montreal Canadiens. He's not good, man. He's a 5'6" defenseman. He's a liability defensively. Yeah, he's a force with his hands and he could beat the piss out of you, but like I think he's like borderline AHL right now. And it sounds like Montreal's got him on the trade market potentially. Like there's that potential that Jack could be on the move. And teams will line up for a guy like that. But I wonder if both these guys are just more so concerned about playing their game right now because they're like borderline guys, I think.
Maybe, but I mean, with guys like that, what's a way to solidify yourself in the lineup? It's the kind of midway through the first period. We have had a shit start. Coach
Mhm.
behind you is barking right now. Get prepared, get your heads on straight. Somebody do something. Couple turnovers happen, couple more chances against your team. God damn it. Finally, fourth line gets called, swing your leg over, go dump the puck, chase it down, hammer the guy, turn around. You want it, boom, away you go. And everyone's on their feet. And yeah, how do you like that? I did something. No one else is doing shit out here. Crowd's going bananas, team's all jacked up. You can change the outcome of the next shift and the momentum. You can grab it after that and kind of break the cycle that's happening. And then you can look and say, "You're not taking me out now. I did my job," as opposed to doing nothing. If you do nothing, then like if you're a player that's not going well and you're a fourth line guy or kind of a bottom rung defenseman, you would lean towards doing more of that to show your
Mhm.
willingness for the team as opposed to, well, I'm almost getting scratched here. Better make sure I don't go out and scrap and do my job. That makes zero sense to me.
Yeah, I just want to, bottom line, I want to see the building buzzing this weekend. It's a back-to-back on home ice. You got Hall of Fame weekend. There's lots of reasons for the fans to get up and cheer. By the way, Craig Berube did comment. Remember, we had Jeremy Roenick on last week. We talked about the sucker punch. Berube saying he sucker punched me in a skirmish one time. Never got the opportunity to get him back. There's still time, but we're friends. Contrary to popular belief, he did get him back, as JR told the story last week on the podcast.
I know. Such a Chief move. He's in the American League. He walks right through the National League dressing room into the locker room, says hey to the guy, and punches him in the face.
Yeah.
Wild times back in the day when men were men and they did stupid stuff like that, whether you like it or not. That's a funny story from JR about Chief.
We got to send an inspector after that. Somebody's lying about this situation. At the Leafs Nation 401, pound that like button, pound that subscribe button. Pretty please, if you run a restaurant, you're too busy for this ad. You're thinking about how to get more orders flowing and new locations opening. You need to get more customers and keep them coming back. So really, you're already thinking about Square, because Square Restaurant Tech helps more than 400,000 restaurants do all those things and more. So when you're thinking about your restaurant, think bigger and think Square. Go to square.ca to see why Square is big in restaurants. As we take our weekly look at the Atlantic Division standings, dude, the Florida Panthers are an absolute wagon. I don't know what's going on with Nashville, by the way. We got to get Schenner on at some point in time, but they're in major league trouble, are the Nashville Predators right now, man.
Yeah, dude, I was texting him and he's like, "Oh yeah, big time frustration. Like it's not cool." And I don't know what the problem is. I mean, when the guy's threatening rebuild and stuff, it's just such a wild thing in sports that they can have the July 1st free agency they had where everyone, including Vegas, just went "Rrrp," and just said, "Oh my, look at these guys load up." But I think it's kind of indicative that you can't really buy a team and force chemistry. They have none right now. And, they got a lot of those veteran guys, and I don't know what's going on there. Obviously, they're frustrated, but they're abysmal compared to what their expectations were this year. So we'll see what they do there, but it's an interesting story to follow. And I kind of feel bad for Schenner trying to have a really exciting, dominant season, and it starts off absolutely nightmare.
Yeah, I think those comments by Trotz were empty threats. I can probably recall back to your era as a Maple Leaf. Brian Burke did that like once a week on the radio. Like there wasn't a radio station or a TV network Brian Burke hated, and we all know that. Comes on our show, we love him. But I think it was an empty threat. It's going to be tough to rebuild when you trade your top prospect Yaroslav Askarov to San Jose to begin with like a month ago. I think it was a ploy to get the team going, but it didn't work, man. They played better in Washington on Wednesday, but they still lost that game. Then they got pummeled. Man, more and more I watch the Florida Panthers, the more and more I think they're a legit threat to go and repeat, man. Like I'm very curious. End of the month, the Maple Leafs are in Sunrise to tangle with the Panthers. You talk about measuring stick games. We're going to figure out how close the Leafs are to the Panthers right now.
Oh, I know, man. They're just such. I bring them up all the time because they're the template, man. That if I had control of anything of an NHL team, of any team in general, it would be, mold yourself after the Florida Panthers. They have 100% buy-in. The coach has complete control of the team, but respects them all at the same time. And the respect is mutual. You have leadership, you have guts, you have balls, you have guys willing to play any style of hockey you want to bring, and they can match it. It's just, and they go to the finals, they win a cup. Now they're leading, their division again. I just think that there's a reason they're successful, and why would they change anything? And why would you be surprised that they're coming out of the gates hot again this season?
Yeah, you shouldn't. I always thought that was a bit of a trap game coming back from Europe, but don't tell that to the Florida Panthers. Now 10-3-1. Again, they just pummeled the Nashville Predators in the return to North America. On Thursday, Tampa plays a crazy game, lose 2-1 in extra time to the Philadelphia Flyers, now 7-6-1. Boston's been sputtering. We saw them the other night, 7-7-1. We talked about Detroit fifth in this division. Buffalo, big win on Broadway against the Rangers last night. The Ottawa Senators up and down, still can't get a save there. And Montreal, as mentioned, but a very clumpy division right now between the Maple Leafs at 16 points and Buffalo at 13 points. It just shows you, especially and specifically these games, we talked about it earlier this week, you got to find a way to win these games in regulation. All divisional matchups, you got Detroit, you got Montreal, and then wrapping things up on Tuesday against the Ottawa Senators.
Yeah, they're 4-point games, right? It's you can get two and prevent a guy right around you from getting anything. It's crucial, and it's kind of interesting that if the Leafs were in any other division, they wouldn't even hardly be in a wild card spot, but they're in second place in this one. With all the talk about how big and scary the Atlantic is, it's kind of interesting, but again, quite early to start thinking that the chips have fallen where they're going to be. So much hockey to play, but it's indicative of the start that teams have had, no doubt. And some teams are looking to continue on their way, and some teams are looking to absolutely right the course, as you mentioned, none more so than the Nashville Predators. But this is a fairly big week as far as you want to look at the standings and whatnot. I think that after this week, that'll be a good time to do it.
Yeah, and don't forget, you want to be hovering around a playoff spot right now. American Thanksgiving still a couple weeks away, but we know the old adage, the old mathematics equation when it comes to American Thanksgiving and being in a playoff spot. So looking forward to that over the next couple weeks. But there's no doubt Nashville's in trouble. The Maple Leafs feeling okay about life right now, 7-5-2 to the first 14 games of the season. Can't believe this is going to be game 15 already as we march almost towards the 1/4 mark in game 20. Maybe just about a week and a half away here. It's time for the last call, brought to you by Bet365. Open an account with Bet365 today and bet on a huge range of markets. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Use code NATION, all in uppercase today. So it's the Leafs and the Red Wings. Anything specifically you are looking at? The one thing I will say from Detroit's aspect is Alex DeBrincat, that shot prop.
Forget him, man. I got Willie anytime goal plus 130. Nice. And I'm going to sprinkle a little bit with the Leafs puck line plus 135. You know, I'm a sucker for that plus money value. And yes, I am a Leafs fanboy, and I'm going to continue to ride them, hoping they make me happy.
I'm going to go with the Max Domi assist. I played it last game. He got close a couple times, didn't come to fruition, but I like the look, obviously, with no Matthews in the lineup. He's on the top line with Red Hot Knies or Red Hot Marner. So I'm going to play Domi, maybe even the shot prop. Those two toe drags last game came out of nowhere. They were filthy, but he was shooting the puck. I love when Max gets in that mindset of shooting the puck, man. It unlocks so much more potential, I feel, in his game.
Yeah, and I think he's looking to do that, and he's been close, and you could call him a little bit snake bitten right now, but I think that's a matter of time. He's a guy where floodgates could open, and I don't mind you thinking it could happen tonight.
Maybe a little Domi ATG action tonight, man. He's really, really due. I know he doesn't shoot the puck, man, but there's potential when you play like with an elite playmaker like Mitch Marner. You just never know. So, Rosie, we'll leave it at that. Again, Hall of Fame weekend, Remembrance Day coming up on Monday. We'll honor those who have served for this country, and also the Hall of Fame class, coming up. Lots to cover coming up on Monday's edition of the podcast. Okay, have a great weekend.
Oh, yeah, that's weird. We're kind of done for the weekend with 2 games ahead of us. Interesting. Well, maybe I'll have to jump on After Dark with you guys and have a BS session if I'm feeling lonesome.
You can do it tonight. You can do it tomorrow, whenever you want to pop by. Man, you have the keys. You have the keys to the building, buddy.
My man. All right, everyone have a good weekend. Go Leafs, go. We'll see what happens.
Yes.
See you Monday.
Love it. Make sure, again, to tune into the Leafs Nation After Dark tonight and tomorrow night with Zach Phillips. Many thanks to everybody in the chat. You guys are fantastic. All week long, all show long at the Leafs Nation 401. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that like button. Leafs Morning Take. Wherever you find your podcast, make sure to leave us a 5-star review. And don't forget to visit theleafsnation.com. Thanks to producer Vic. For Jay Rosehill, I'm Nick Alberga. We'll talk on Monday. Take care. Peace. Make sure to check out more of our content right here on the Leafs Nation YouTube page. We got long-form interviews. We got clips. We got epic rants by Jay Rosehill. We simply have it all. And don't forget, you can find out much more at theleafsnation.com. Thanks so much for watching.